Are you a fundable founder? That is number one. You might have the greatest idea, which is number two. You got to have a great idea. You got to be a fundable founder. But if your idea is great and you're absolutely crazy and you can't tell your story, nobody's going to give you a dollar. So I want to make sure they're a fundable personality. They've got some history. Even if they don't have personality, they've got expertise and history and experience in the category they're in. Then I want to make sure that they have a great product. I don't even need to look at their team. I need to make sure the product is good, the concept, the idea. Usually a pitch deck will solve this for you. Show me your pitch deck. Give me a 4-minute pitch video and I'll tell you if it works.
Welcome to Outsource to Profits. Patrick, thank you so much for being a guest. Do you mind introducing everybody to who you are, how you serve the world? And then we're going to give our topic of the week.
Yeah, sure. Really appreciate it. Thanks for bringing me on, Jamie. I will say this. I am Patrick McGuire. I'm a diseased entrepreneur. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer at ThinkFISH. And I love to see founders succeed, whether it's in their marketing, their go-to-market, investor readiness, or their growth and exit strategies. And that's just what I do. And I am a multiple-time founder. I've had several good exits, several not so good exits, nothing bad, which is good. Raised over $70 million for my own projects and worked with some of the best teams that you can imagine in North America and globally.
Fantastic. Now here's the situation we're going to pose. I'm going to tell it through a story. I'm a sales guy. I build a company, Sales for Life, invents social selling as a sales methodology, and we go from zero to millions of dollars really quickly. As a seller, I only ever focused on the numerator. All I ever chased was revenue. Literally never gave a second's thought to the denominator, how to save money. So long and the short is making millions, spending millions, and one day those two numbers collide. And I realize I don't even know how this is possible. I'm running out of money. Long and the short is nobody had ever taught me the basic financial acumen around zero-based budgeting. And I never understood that. Imagine you're a 20% profit business. For every dollar I saved, it's $5 of revenue I don't need to go chase. Right. And so I constantly thought I needed to win the next $250,000 deal and I need to get millions bigger. But if I just saved like $100,000, that's like $500,000 of revenue I didn't need to chase to yield the same EBITDA. And I was taught then years into being an entrepreneur, zero-based budgeting. And I started looking at every line item in the P&L and I discovered, we had software licenses to people that didn't work there. Or we'd do 3-year software licenses thinking we were saving 10 and 20%, but we had this massive deferred liability. Same with real estate. Same with employee severance. And Absolutely. Long and the short, these are some of the things that obviously transformed my mind around the optionality that offshoring provided because I had talent that was fraction the cost, gave me way more optionality. So you and I were just talking about this off record or off the mic, but talk about your mindset around founders don't always need to raise capital. And a lot of times they don't need as much as they think. And how critical, you were talking about how important it is to yourself to maintain that equity and to really think of those chips as a nest egg that is unforeseen now, but could be worth so much in the future.
Yeah. I mean, those are all challenges that everybody has to go through. It doesn't matter if you're a business owner, a founder, you've never done this before, or if you're mom, dad, staying at home, first-time student out on your own, you need to know like everything has a consequence. If you say yes to that cheeseburger, you're saying no to the $5 website security scan. You got to think of that. It's zero-based budget. If you say yes to whatever it is you're out there, you're saying absolutely no to something else. Mm-hmm. And I am a cheap, frugal, Irish, firstborn in Canada, that type of guy. I'm zero-based budget on everything I do. If we can't invest $250 and get $250 out of that, it's not worth it. It's like we got to really argue it amongst the team to decide if we're going to do it. So we need to see some sort of revenue on everything inside of a few weeks. In fact, I've got a client I was just talking to, and he's a founder, great guy, had him this morning. He's way early, but he looks much more professional. He looks more ready. He looks like he should be going to the investors. And my recommendation was, you don't want to go to the investors yet. You want our big package. I mean, our job is to help founders raise capital. We make those investor meetings happen so they don't have to waste time. And time is money, as you mentioned earlier. Time is money. They're not spending all that time because our team's taking care of qualifying, getting the right investors, because our outreach is absolutely over the top. And it's a lot less. But even though this gentleman wanted everything, I just said, look, you're pre-seed, pre-revenue. I am not going to sell you the big package, the pro package. I'm going to recommend that you just wait a little bit. And in fact, if you're ready, when you're ready, let's start with the power type package, the introductory level, because that's all you need. You don't have a big team yet and you need to save your money. And I actually told him, stop giving away your equity right now. Because he says, oh, I'll bring a CTO on for equity. And I went, stop it right now. It sounds free, but it is the most expensive mistake you're going to make for the rest of your life. You know, that couple of shares might be worth $100 today. It's $1 million mistake in 23 months. And I say that one from experience because 23 months was the exact date. I can tell you who, I can tell you where, I can tell you how much of a mistake I made. Could have been about $2.4 million, but that's just between us.
That
So
would
they
have
don't
been
need
a
to
cottage
spend as
right
much.
there.
They don't need to raise as much today.
That would have been a beautiful cottage on a lake somewhere.
Or the next project, who knows?
Where are you seeing the bloat, the excess? Where do you see? So you're going into a customer, and that customer says, I need to raise capital. Again, that is the mindset of the numerator. I need more money. Where are you seeing on the denominator? You say, hold on a second. Before you start talking to investors, angels, banks, wherever you're going to get this capital, the Business Development Bank of Canada.
Yep.
Long and the short is, where are you seeing bloat, rot, excess that you might advise them to consider your denominator first? Then it will recalculate the amount you might need in the future, thus less dilutive.
Yeah. It's everywhere. It is rampant these days. Young lady, awesome lady, I'll reference it, Bid and Stay. It's a company out in the UK. They're looking to grow globally. And she's brilliant. She is. But there's bloat because the feel is the need to develop everything and hire everybody internally. But she's been really smart. Instead of hiring everybody and having a giant team that has debt, I do think of employees as debt, even though I built an HR tech software and I shouldn't say that. But but it's a debt. It's liability for the future, whether it's 6 months or a year or 10 years. That's a huge bloat. So team bloat is ridiculous. So this individual lady, I think, Emma, really great, awesome. She built the tech with a very small team. In fact, outsourced a lot of the tech. She followed a model that I like to believe, that I teach to a lot of people. I've done it myself, is I get those outsourced partners on contract, on micro projects. Then we look at the bigger project. Then we look at a sprint. And then we do a series of sprints to get to a certain stage, phase 1, 2, 3, MVP, whatever. And then, and only then, can we consider you for a stage-based or sprint-based contract on a semi-permanent. And then we may consider you to become part of our team. And
this
that's
is
how I've done it.
amazing advice. Amazing advice. I want everybody to understand what they're hearing. When I had 3 M&A opportunities in my first company, Sales for Life. When I was going through due diligence in the third iteration of this, I didn't realize that employee severance is a deferred liability. And I didn't realize. So my company had lost millions in revenue and lost $500,000. I thought I was walking into a boardroom knowing that I had a slight hiccup. Instead of being EBITDA positive that year, We spent a little bit too much, but don't worry. We're only $500,000 down. No, 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 no. A bunch of investment bankers sitting in the room said, no, you're not. You're 1.1 or $1.2 million in debt.
Oh, yeah.
What are you talking about? I said, you haven't understood that you have a deferred liability employee severance. You've got all these people in Toronto, Canada, that you're going to have to pay checks to when you let them go. And I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. And I've often talked about what's called the cupboard theory. The cupboard theory dictates that when you move houses from a small house to a big house, you somehow move the same set of pots and pans from a 4 cupboard kitchen to an 8 cupboard kitchen. Yet you get to the 8 cupboard kitchen, it's completely filled. And you can't understand why. It's because you thought, because us in North America, everybody's got to be a full-time employee. So you got one single project. Well, we need a person for that. Hire them, hire them, hire them. You created deferred liability. So for the audience, can you help the fellow founder, the CEO, maybe that's newer or didn't have like myself, the financial acumen wasn't there. Go back and maybe double click for them. What does this mean? This bloat on human capital. And you're seeing people, you called it a debt. Maybe kind of reiterate that for everybody because they don't realize that.
Well, I look at it as a debt in many ways. One, there's a financial debt. I'm unburdened to them for whatever the severance is, especially North Americans, but specifically Canadians. It's not a work to right or right to work, however you want to term that, like the US. And it's not a contract. So I can't just say, hey, this is why we're not going to work together. I have to give let's say it's a bad termination. I have to give 3 warnings. I have to have 3 written documented warnings. I have to have cause. And when I say bye, and this happened to me actually from the company that I sold, a US individual stepped in and said, your time here is going to be short-lived. And I went, pardon me? You realize this entire division doesn't exist without myself, my partner who founded the company that you acquired, and you're brand new, hired 3 months, and you're telling the former founder, his time is short-lived.
How dare you?
I was pissed, and I just went, whatever. I had my money, but she went away on holidays, came back 3 weeks later, got on the call with our monthly cadence call, and she says, okay, I've got HR on the phone, and this will be your last day. And she hung up before I could ask why, because there was no written documentation. They didn't understand that. So I went to battle in court to fight for my employees that came on from our company, the Canadians, to make sure they didn't get stuck with this in the future. I came out at 0. I didn't lose. I didn't make any money. It was 0. A little bit of money in the bank, a little bit basically went to taxes. That's all it was. No money in the cash in my pocket. But that's a financial debt specifically to Canada. But in the US, don't get me wrong, you're going to get sued by some employees when you cut them off. But then there's also the proper way to do it. Hey, this isn't working. Let's move forward. It's a severance package. It might be 6 months to a year. It's a month for every year of service. That's the standard. That's not even high performers like people like you and I. Yeah. That's scary. But the other debt that I think of that's really, really important is I'm indebted to you personally, Jamie. I'm indebted to a person, to their lifestyle, to their family, to their future. And if I let someone go, did I leave them with a good impression of what excellence could be, or give them hope for a better future? Or did I just cut them off and tell them to get lost? Whether it was good or bad, either way, I need to think about the liability there. That's the debt that I'm really concerned about, and making sure that financially we do what is right. And companies, like you said, they get to you don't even want to get me on the investment banker. I could talk about that because they cost us a lot of money and actually lost us in one deal, $1.2 million beyond what I previously negotiated over a red wine.
Oh.
So
you had a retrade. They didn't even make up the retrade difference.
They didn't. We lost, and we paid them, and we had to pay their retainer, pay their monthlies for about 8 months on a negotiation that we'd already agreed to. And they lost us 1.2, and they got a performance check at the end for losing us money.
Oh man, I'm in the wrong business.
So I stopped listening to board members at that point within reason.
Wow.
But yeah, so those are debts that I believe we have to account for and we're held liable for as founders. And if you're not thinking of that now and thinking about how much money you could save by outsourcing or contracting for the immediate factor, think about how much money you can save for outsourcing or contracting for the future value, the future debt, or the severance or liability. And in Jamie's case, cost you a lot of money.
Yeah.
So those are things that I think of with the capital, the human capital debt, and the emotional indebtedness is probably the most important.
So with time remaining, last question. You're walking in to a founder who's come to you, doorbell rang into your office and said, I need capital. I need to raise capital. And of course, there's optionality to where you acquire that capital. What are the top 3 things that you're looking for to prepare them? Like an investment banker should be preparing you for merger and acquisition. You're preparing them for a pre-seed, a seed, a series A, and so forth. As you're walking in, this is going to be the checklist of the top 3 things that your counterpart, those that are giving the capital, are going to be asking for. What does that readiness checklist look like?
Great question. It changes from time to time, but the things that I'm really interested in, are you a fundable founder? That is number 1. You might have the greatest idea, which is number 2. You got to have a great idea. You got to be a fundable founder. But if your idea is great and you're absolutely crazy and you can't tell your story, nobody's going to give you $1. So I want to make sure they're a fundable personality. They've got some history. Even if they don't have personality, they've got expertise and history and experience in the category they're in. Then I want to make sure that they have a great product. I don't even need to look at their team. I need to make sure the product is good, the concept, the idea. Usually a pitch deck will solve this for you. Show me your pitch deck. Give me a 4-minute pitch video and I'll tell you if it works. In fact, I'll tell you now, Jamie, I offer most of our qualified leads a free pitch deck review. I do it personally because I've won awards and I've raised 70 million myself, but I also use an AI tool to quantify the metrics of that. So great founder, good story, good product. And then we start to look at, do you have a team? Because you put those 3 things together and you've got something. You could probably figure out how to go to market if the 3 of you smashed heads over coffees or beers.
This is amazing. So how do people get a hold of you? What is the ideal persona? Somebody listening to this, a founder, CEO, and they want to use your services. Why would they go to ThinkFISH? How do they get a hold of you? How do they feel that they're qualified to speak to you?
That's an awesome question. I really appreciate the opportunity to share that. We're looking for pre-seed to Series A founders. We also are looking for investors who are looking for more deal flow. We have an incredible newsletter currently going out to 85,000 plus investor targeted individuals. We've got an incredible community. We call it the Reef, our warm waters. I mean, ThinkFISH, funding is hard. We've got to have warm waters of investors with 4,000 and change investors actively involved in looking at our deal flow. And we work with a couple hundred great founders and great companies every single year. We got a huge community. I can't even explain it here on this call, but the best way to get in touch with us is thinkfish.co or thinkfish.com, and email me, patrick@thinkfish.co. I am looking for incredible founders who have a great vision, who have a little bit more than just an idea on a napkin, because our investor meetings that we do all the work for, we're a fully outsourced service team that are keyed at investor relations. We book qualified aligned investor meetings on your calendar, so you don't have to waste all your time trying to figure out that roadmap. I want to look at the investors' eyeballs in a different way. I want to help the founders get on their calendars or vice versa. Better than a napkin idea, hyper-focused, good team, great idea. Give me a call. Email me, patrick@thinkfish.co.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you. Really appreciate it, Jamie. Anytime, anything. And hey, if your audience wants a free pitch deck review, tell them to email patrick@thinkfish.co.
I like that. Fantastic. You take care.
Thank you, Jamie. Take care.